communist refugee camp near Belgrade, these people stand as stark reminders of the wars which erupted after the breakup of Yugoslavia in the early 90s. They fled the fighting in Bosnia and Croatia in 1995. They are ethnic Serbs and have been here for over 15 years. Slobodan Uzilac and his family are from Kordun in Croatia, an area which was almost entirely Serb until World War II, when they suffered large losses under the pro-Nazi Ustasha regime. No surprise then that Kordun was a major battle site between Croats and Serbs after Croatia declared independence. No surprise either that here Ratko Mladic is a hero.
He was a man who defended his country, and not just his country, but his people, the community, and the way we all used to live together.
For Slobodan, like others in this camp, Mladic's arrest underlines a sense of injustice, an injustice that crimes against ethnic Serbs in Croatia and Bosnia have largely gone unpunished.
When we were fleeing from our village in Kordun, 13 boys were killed, and nobody has been indicted for that. There was a column of soldiers on the bridge, and they slaughtered these boys from our village. And no one was ever arrested. It's never been mentioned, not in any newspaper. Nothing.
There's little doubt that the arrest of Ratko Mladic last month has left this Balkan country of 10 million divided. Some feel that Serbia has had to shoulder an unfair burden of blame in the wars that erupted following Yugoslavia's breakup. Others claim his arrest sends a clear signal that the past is the past and that Serbia's future lies towards the West and EU integration. One such person is Dejan Šantovac, who owns a restaurant in the heart of Belgrade. He's part of a generation which left Serbia just before the breakup of Yugoslavia and the wars that followed. Dejan returned from Moscow in 2002. For him, extraditing Mladic is the only way to move Serbia closer to Europe.
Mostly people who support him are not Serbians. They are Serb from Croatia, the refugee people who lived in other part of ex-Yugoslavia. Mostly Serbians from Serbia first never understood that war. Why it's supposed to be like that? As second, never support Mladic or Karadzic or everything. It was civil war. And now the people who support, even here in the restaurant, he's been supported only by the people who are not from this part of ex-Yugoslavia.
Nemanja Gedalia works in the restaurant. He's one of the estimated 250,000 of ethnic Serbs who fled Croatia during the war. He will never return there, but he doesn't blame the man nicknamed the Butcher of the Balkans.
I think that Mladic was an honorable man and officer, and I don't think he should have been arrested. He actually helped a lot of Muslim people during the war by protecting them from revenge killings. I think he was an honest patriot who served his people. I'm from the same part of former Yugoslavia as he is, and I consider myself a patriot, like he was a patriot.
A patriot of the Serbian people. In the streets of Belgrade, for many that's a hard pill to swallow. Throughout the 20th century, Serbia saw itself on the side of the Allies, of Europe, and as victims of the atrocities of both world wars, not perpetrators. For this historian, arresting Mladic was the right path to choose in closing one of Serbia's darkest chapters.
Mladic is one of the biggest embarrassments in our history. He had the cap of the Serbian officer from the First World War. In the First World War, Serbian army didn't kill a single prisoner. It is a very unique and strange fact. So he really disgraced this uniform, and in our tradition of liberation wars, and we used to be victims of the genocide, of the Holocaust, and he absolutely stained our history to a great degree. Nowadays, Srebrenica is one of the most hideous terms in the world.
In Belgrade, these buildings were destroyed during NATO's airstrikes in 1999 to allegedly stop the conflict in Kosovo from escalating. Sanctions, bombings, political and economic isolation. The price said to be paid for the Serbian nationalist politics under Slobodan Milosevic, who was handed over to the Hague Tribunal in 2001, where he died 5 years later. A tribunal which now holds in its hands the fate of two of his so-called protégés, Radovan Karadzic and now Mladic. And The Hague is not without its critics, especially in the Balkans. Dragan Todorovic is the number 2 man of the Serbian Radical Party, a party which is anti-EU and anti-Hague. The main reason the party's leader has been at the tribunal for 9 years, his trial is still pending.
Vojislav Šešelj is a symbol of the resistance to globalization and the destruction of Serbia, because it's been 9 years that he's been at The Hague. He is innocent, and during these 9 years he has managed to prove and show that The Hague is just a political tool. One just needs to look at the statistics of the International Tribunal. 80% of the indictees are Serbs, 15% are Croats, and less than 5% are Muslims, Albanians or Macedonians. And in all, the Serbs have been sentenced to 1,000 years in prison.
The Hague itself is very compromised. This bureaucratic monster has a budget of the modest state in the region. For the money Hague Tribunal annihilated, they could have built a house for each victim of war in Bosnia, literally. If you don't believe, try to estimate numbers. So much money was wasted with no results. It didn't achieve catharsis. It didn't achieve this change of conscience. One of the aims was to reform the political climate and memories of the people in the region, and it failed.
These Bosnian Serbs have been in this camp since 1996. Drago Dragic says he lost everything when he fled his town in Bosnia, which is now part of the Croat Muslim Federation. He says things can never be the same and that Mladic's arrest won't foster reconciliation.
The Second World War was a very harsh and fierce war, and I remember it, and it lasted way into 1945. In 1946, we were one nation, one people. When I joined the army in 1952, we were all breathing with the same soul, living as one. But 20 years ago, it all started again, and last year I went back to where I lived in Bosnia, and there is such hatred that still reigns that nothing can be done.
Reconciling the hatred of a conflict that killed more than 100,000 people and ruined the lives of countless more. Throughout the Balkans, the fear is that closure will take years to come.